Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Thea George and I'm here with Richard Exton of Bank of Ireland UK. We're talking about PSD2. Richard, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Thea, and great to be here today. Thank you very much.
So should we be talking about PSD2 or should we be talking about open banking?
From my perspective, Thea, I think we should be really focusing on the outcome that we're seeking to achieve through PSD2. And therefore, I'd suggest that we ought to be talking more about open banking, because after all, that's the movement, that's the desired outcome that we're seeking to achieve across the industry. Now, clearly, PSD2 is a critical enabler for that, so it's important that we talk about that as well. But I think acknowledging that PSD2 is the enabler and puts in place the regulatory and technical framework that underpins what we're seeking to achieve through open banking is absolutely critical. From a UK perspective, the other thing that I'd add is, obviously given the dimension of open banking in the context of the CMA's remedies, it's vital that we think about the earlier deadlines that apply to that and the need to ensure that we're ready for the CMA open banking deadlines too.
Thinking about PSD2, how can banks go beyond compliance?
Well, clearly, I mean, it's absolutely understandable that banks' primary concern is ensuring that we're ready to comply in time for the deadlines, whether those are the deadlines for PSD2 or indeed the CMA open banking deadlines. So I think it's entirely understandable and reasonable that's front and central in terms of how banks are thinking about PSD2. But I think it's essential, particularly again when we go back to the outcomes that we're seeking to achieve through the open banking movement. It's essential that we consider how we build optionality into the way that we respond to PSD2. So as we comply and as we put in place the solutions that allow us to achieve that, I think we need to do it in a way that creates optionality, recognising that there are a number of unknowns. You know, first and foremost, we don't know how customers will react to PSD2 and open banking and the propositions that banks and others introduce to the marketplace. That's an unknown, both in terms of the scale of disruption and change that we're likely to see, and indeed the timing and speed with which customers adopt the new solutions that are in the marketplace. But I think first and foremost, if banks think in terms of, certainly the way that we're thinking is in terms of building optionality, so that as we achieve compliance, we're also creating a platform on top of which we can innovate and create more strategic solutions for PSD2.
So you are going to participate in a panel session at EBA Day entitled Making the Most of PSD2. But making the most of it for whom? Do you think enough focus is going into delivering value to customers in a PSD2 environment?
I think that's a great question, Thea. And for me, thinking about a lot of the thinking around PSD2 has been inside out. So from inside the organisation out to the external world. And so clearly lots of consideration is given to how we ensure we're compliant, how we ensure we've got the right technical enablers and solutions in place, and indeed what are the implications for our existing parts of the business. And that's entirely understandable. But I think if we take an outside in view, that for me is really at the heart of how we get to what this means for the customer. And I think unless we do that, the risk is that we put the enablers in place, but we fail to translate those enablers into real customer value. And really, if you think beyond PSD2 into open banking, that for me is why it's so important that we think about how PSD2 will deliver great solutions, great customer experiences, and true customer value that will achieve that open banking desired outcome.
So just how disruptive do you think PSD2 is going to be?
I'm not sure I or anyone else can truly answer that, Thea, although we can all debate whether PSD2 will lead to a disruption, a discontinuity, or even will it be a distraction to the financial services industry. I think I'd say with a fair degree of confidence that it will absolutely cause disruption. Whether it will be an absolute discontinuity in the way that we do things, only time will tell. I often think about PSD2 and open banking in the same way that I think about driverless car technology. And if we ask ourselves the question, do we expect London and other cities to be taken over by sort of hordes of driverless vehicles within the next 10 to 15 years? Maybe, but I'm not convinced that will be the case. However, I do think that the technology that's being delivered through driverless cars will absolutely start to be introduced, and we're already seeing it being introduced into the way that we're driving cars today. So I think in the same way with PSD2, I absolutely expect the enablers and the new solutions that PSD2 will deliver, I expect those to be introduced in the way that we're managing financial services and in the way that we're interacting with consumers.
Richard, thank you for joining me.
Thanks very much, Thea. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for watching.